What is going on, guys? Phil here from Philscraftcorner. Today I want to talk to you about a couple of 3D printers I bought off Facebook Marketplace and discuss whether or not I got a decent deal or whether I got had over and I bought two dud printers. So let's get into it and take a look at what I've actually bought. Now I bought two 3D printers. One of them is a Artillery Sidewinder X1 and the second printer I bought was an Anycubic i3 Mega S. So I found these two printers on Facebook Marketplace. The guy was selling them for £240 for both of them, and he threw in 9 rolls of filament, all different colours, and a few tools because I was getting started. So I thought, fair enough, it seems legit. But I bought them both, got them back home, and I got the Sidewinder set up, plugged the USB in that came with it, and I've printed this. This is the stock cube that comes on the USB already, and it came out fairly well. I was quite impressed. It took about 20 minutes to print this out. The top of it had a bit of stringing, and the bottom I made a mistake of not knowing about bed adhesion, and it stuck way too well, so I had to heat up the bed and scrape it off really quite violently, to be fair. I now know that if I spray a little bit of hairspray on the top, then it helps with that. It sticks fairly well, but not too well, so that's a good one. And now comes the nightmare. I was looking over the machine, it started making some weird grinding noises coming from the extruder, and it turns out one of the bearings that for the filament gear had seized. It was just solid and it was starting to create little rust marks. So I disassembled it, I had a look around and put it back together, still the same. One thing I noticed when I disassembled it was this part, and that looks like this. This goes on top of a bit of PTFE tube and helps with the tensioner to feed the filament in. Now I thought this was broken because it looks broken. It isn't actually broken, it's supposed to be that shape, but it does have a few grind marks in it, so there was a bit of an issue with that. Turns out that wasn't the issue, it was just that seized bearing, and it was only after I ordered a brand new kit from 3D Jake and installed that I noticed the bearing that was seized, because I had to take it out of one of the old housings and put it onto the new one. I managed to replace that with a spare that I had, and it's now running really well. It's actually running right now. I don't know if you can hear it. It's really quiet. That's why I really like the Sidewinder X1. It runs so quietly. It's been running since I started this video actually. I'm printing a few test pieces out again, so hopefully we have some decent results now. Some of the first results I had was this being a desk tidy, and it came out absolutely terrible. I don't know if you can see how bad that was. We had a shift on the x-axis. The supports on this side it didn't come off properly. Supports at the back didn't come off properly. The tube that's supposed to sit in wasn't even finished, and the supports on there were terrible, and I ended up with this horrible line all the way up one side where it started and finished that layer. And those were printed on the Sidewinder X1 before I figured out the filament issue. Now I made this cat bowl planter last night after I fitted the new extruder, and that came out really nicely. There's a few tweaks that I need to make, but that was on the fast draft setting with defaults, and I didn't mess about with the settings that much. I'm now printing a few other things with a bit more quality settings just to see how that works out, and so far I'm quite happy. I need to learn a little bit more about 3D printing and profiles and that kind of thing, but I'm getting there, and as you guys know, this channel's all about me learning. So that's the Sidewinder. That was the issue I had with the Sidewinder. No other issues. Everything else seems pretty well done and well put together. Time will tell on that one. I've had it 2 weeks now, and a week of that I was waiting for new parts and I couldn't use it at all because I'd broken the thermistor on the hot end while disassembling it. That thing is super fragile, so if you do disassemble your hot end, be really careful and try not to move that too much. Don't grab hold of it, be very careful, because yeah, it will break really easy. Anyway, so because I couldn't use the Sidewinder, I decided to get the Anycubic out of the box, and my first thought was, can I take the hot end off that and put it on the Sidewinder, because I've not really got the space to have two set up. And the answer is no, it's a completely different hot end, and kind of makes sense, it's a completely different machine. I put that together and I immediately noticed some scratches on the top of the bed. So alarm bells were ringing. This thing wasn't brand new out of the box, it had been used before. The next thing that made me realise it had been used before was I couldn't feed filament into the Bowden tube across the top. And that's because there was some broken, crumbled up filament stuck in the Bowden tube. And it took me a while to figure out that I needed to heat the machine up to be able to take the Bowden tube out, because on the hot end side it was all sealed with filament that had melted and solidified in there after cooling. So I warmed it up, I managed to take the Bowden tube out, and I took all of that filament out, put it back together, fed the filament through, put a test print on, and it made an awful grinding noise coming from the extruder. So that was also a bit of a worry, and I thought it might be a similar issue. Even though the extruder is a completely different assembly, I tried to figure out what it was, did a bit of research online. One of the things I came up with was the voltage was wrong on the stepper motor. So based on Anycubic's information and guide, I managed to get that down to the right voltage. The grinding went away, but it was still grinding filament. So the noise went away, but it was still grinding filament, and it was like there was an issue with it feeding. So the next thing was, maybe I've got a blocked hot end, so I disassembled the hot end, pulled it all apart. At this point I'd done hours and hours of research on what could be wrong with the 3D printers that I've got, and I've learned a little bit, some common issues to check. Simplify 3D is a great website for coming up with things like that. They show you some pictures, and if your print looks like that, they'll give you a guide on how to repair it. So that was one of the places I went, some forums, Reddit, things like that. I was reading a lot, so I was diagnosing and trying to figure it out. So I managed to take the hot end apart on this one without damaging anything this time, because I was being really careful, and I realised it was completely blocked. The heat break tube was completely blocked, the Bowden tube end was a little bit damaged, and the nozzle itself was completely damaged. It seems like he didn't have the bed set properly, and the nozzle had crashed into the bed a couple of times and warped the nozzle slightly, so that was one of the issues that I had to counteract. So I replaced the nozzle. I snipped the end of the Bowden tube, so it's got a nice end. I need to replace it because it's a little bit shorter now, and it's the original one, so apparently they're really bad quality from what I was reading. So that's going to get replaced soon. Then I managed to get it all put back together, and I tested some filament going through without the nozzle on the end, and it went all the way through nice and smooth, not a problem, not catching anywhere, so that was good. So then I put the nozzle back on, fired it all back up, heated it up, tried to do the filament exchange to extrude a bit of filament, and it was grinding filament again. It wasn't coming out as a nice smooth pattern, it was coming out absolutely terribly. So I did a bit more research, and one of the other things was to calibrate the filament feed, so the E-steps. So I hooked it up to my PC, which again I had to move loads of bits and pieces around just so I could get the wire over to my PC, because I never thought I'd have to do this. I managed to get it on, and instead of extruding 100mm of filament, I didn't have this attached to the hot end at the time, so I managed to just feed it through the Bowden tube without the hot end, just to take out any kind of interference between the hot end blocking or anything like that. So instead of feeding 100mm through the extruder, which is the command I sent, it fed through 400mm, so it was trying to feed 4 times the amount of filament it needed to do. So I recalibrated the E-steps, got them back down to 100mm. That stopped the grinding noise, and this machine worked really well. So I then obviously leveled off the bed and printed off this XYZ cube, and this turned out really nicely. This was with default settings and again on a draft. The only issues I had were this side of the X. I don't know if you can see that. The top part of it, it's like there was a bit of filament missing at the start, and that's the side that the fan is on. So I thought it was something to do with that. I'm still trying to figure that out. If you know why this is happening, with that edge, this was the start of the movement. So this was at the start and the end. So on the start of the movement, it was missing some. On the X, we've got the overhang in the X, which didn't turn out absolutely perfectly. There's a tiny little bit of shift there. And on the Y, there's a little bit more on the overhang that didn't come out properly. I printed this hollow. This is pretty much hollow with Cura slicer. I used the lightning infill, and it's very clever because it uses the sides on the inside to create the infill instead of all the way up. So if you don't need it to be an absolute solid block, it's not going to be load bearing, then this works. This is a 50mm XYZ cube, and I chose 50mm because I'm printing things a little bit bigger than 20mm, so it's better to calibrate roughly with the size that you're going to be printing things. I could have done 100mm, but that's going to take forever. 50mm should be fine for my purposes. The next thing I printed was a spool holder. This is just a spool holder that I found on Thingiverse, and it prints this way. And again, it came up with those missing parts on the start of this side, which again was on the side that the fan was facing, so I was thinking that might have something to do with it. I needed to print this because it didn't have a spool holder with the printer, which again, brand new in the box, didn't have a spool holder, something wrong there. To actually make it work and be able to print that spool holder, I just turned my Sidewinder X1 sideways because I couldn't use that at the time, and I just used the spool holder on the top of that. That worked okay for the time being until I got that one printed, and that one's working really well, so I'm happy with that. After I had it running, I printed out the this is the very first prototype for my laser head bracket. It only took 3 iterations to get a happy result for me, nice and strong. This was only printed at 3mm, and as you can see, it's not very strong. I just upped that to 5mm, and it's working perfectly fine. That is my 3D printing nightmare so far. Did I get a bargain? Yeah, I did get a bargain. I'm quite happy with the purchase still. I'm unhappy that I was lied to about the whole situation and why they were being sold, because obviously these 2 units were sold because he couldn't find out what was wrong with them and fix them. But I'm more of a technical minded person. I won't give up on something. If something's wrong, somebody out there probably already has had to fix that, and the information will be there. And if not, then I can probably figure it out from what other people have had to deal with. And that's one thing that I enjoy about doing this crafting job and doing this channel, is I can figure things out, and if I figure something out, I can show you guys, and hopefully we can sort things out from there. Now, I know this hasn't been an in-depth how to repair the problems I've had, or a review of the printers or anything like that. It's just been me talking to you about my experience with buying these on Facebook Marketplace and the issues that I've had to resolve to get them working. Over the next few months and stuff, I'm going to be learning more and more about 3D printing, and I hope you guys want to follow along as well. So if you hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell, then follow along, and hopefully we can learn 3D printing together. If anybody's watching this and they know a lot about 3D printing, and anything I've just said sparks anything with you that I should check, then let me know down below and I'll check them out, and I'll make sure these are working properly. I hope in the next couple of weeks, after I've played with these a little bit more and learnt a little bit more, I will discuss whether each of these printers are good for a beginner, because I am a beginner, and if I can make them work, then pretty much anybody should be able to make them work. I'm starting to learn about slicers and 3D software and things like that. So that's the biggest part for me to learn, is the software and the designing side. The mechanical side of it I can figure out and I can have a look at and probably fix. So I hope you found this fairly entertaining and you got some information from it. If you did, hit that like button and let me know that I am doing a decent job of making YouTube videos. I think I'm doing an okay job because I've just passed 1,800 subscribers, which is just mind-blowing. I remember getting my first 200 subscribers, my first 100 subscribers. It was such a great feeling. It's absolutely amazing that people want to watch my content, and every time somebody comments on one of my videos saying you helped out, this was perfect, it helped me, you gave some great advice, that's the whole reason I want to make this channel, is to give you guys some advice and learn along with you. If I learn something, I figure somebody else might need that information as well, so I do pass that on. That being said, I'm going to let this print finish, and I'm hopefully not going to have to spend hours editing this video, because I had to record this 3 times because this video was not what I intended it to be. I intended this to be, I bought some 3D printers off Facebook Marketplace, I got a bargain, look how great they are. And it's not been that at all. It's been a very, very bumpy ride to get to this point. So I appreciate everybody's support in everything I do. Thank you guys, every single one of you, for watching this far. I will catch you in the next video, which hopefully should be me knocking down a wall and rebuilding a fence and rebuilding a shed. It was a lot of fun. I'm still in the process of rebuilding the shed. That should be done over the weekend. And yeah, let's get back to some fun stuff. Cheers guys, I'll catch you in the next video.